Hello, my friends. Today I will be recapping the movie called Murder Mystery 2. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. The movie begins with Nick and Audrey Spitz, who now have a business running a private detective agency after quitting their jobs 4 years ago. They initially got popular after solving the case but end up being terrible detectives. Maharaja calls them to attend his all-expenses-paid wedding, which is on a private island. They meet the colonel who has lost one arm protecting the Maharaja from a bullet. Maharaja has hired a new bodyguard, Louis, that works along with the colonel, but the colonel dislikes him. Audrey and Nick meet Claudette, Maharaja's fiancée, who used to be a civilian. They instantly fall in love and decide to get married. In their room, the Spitzes are losing their minds at the luxury gifts, food, and outfits that had been provided by the hosts. Both of them get dressed in traditional Indian wear for the Sangeet ceremony. At the ceremony, the couple meets Francisco, a retired soccer player who was appointed as the chairman of Maharaja's company. He also was Claudette's ex-boyfriend. Audrey also has an awkward interaction with Countess Sekou, Maharaja's ex-fiancée, who also used to be Claudette's roommate. The couple also interacts with Sarah, Maharaja's half-sister. After an elaborate dance performance, the groom, Maharaja Vikram, makes a grand entry, riding an elephant. The guests are shocked to see that the person the elephant had been stabbed with a knife and was actually Louis, dressed as Vic. Louis dies before revealing who the murderer was, and Nick rushes to look for Vic. He spots Vic being taken away in a boat by a man dressed in black. Meanwhile, Audrey takes photos of on-site evidence on her mobile. The detectives, Nick and Audrey, get to work and start to find clues about Maharaja's kidnapping and Louis's murder. Nick concludes that since someone guided Louis on the elephant inside the venue and someone else kidnapped Maharaja, there were two culprits. Colonel mentions that just the people on the board knew about the elephant, which has Nick narrow down the list of suspects to the Colonel, Claudette, Sekou, and her friend Saira and Francisco. This causes Claudette and Sekou to end up in a fistfight, and the Spitzes agree to take on the case. That night, one by one, all the suspects visit Nick and Audrey's room to share who they think was the accomplice. They all end up fighting as they blame each other. Just then, Claudette gets a call from the kidnappers who warn them against calling the cops and claim they would call back at 7 a.m. Both Nick and Audrey pass out in the middle of the investigation and wake up the next morning. That morning, Colonel introduces Nick and Audrey, as well as the rest of the group, to a high-profile investigator who was taking on the case. Connor Miller. The investigator is also Audrey's idol, but Miller ends up pinning the blame on the couple instead. Nick is ready to leave the island but has to stay when the Colonel mentions that the kidnappers would only talk to the Spitzes. Miller and his team are trying to trace the call, and Nick starts talking to the person on the other line. The kidnapper asks for $50 million as ransom, which shocks Francisco, and the kidnapper immediately ends the call. The kidnapper calls again and confirms that the price is now $60 million and asks for the money to be delivered in Paris. Audrey asks for proof that Maharaja is alive, and the couple tries to trap the kidnapper, but the person on the line ends up making the ransom price of $70 million before ending the call. The Spitzes help trace the call, and the group leaves for Paris. On their ride, Miller puts Audrey in charge of the phone that the kidnapper would call on, as well as the gun, while Nick has the ransom money. Audrey impresses Miller because she knows all of his rules when it comes to dealing with a kidnapper. Nick and Audrey make it to the location, and they get a call from the kidnapper. Maharaja talks to the couple for a bit, but the kidnapper asks the couple to put the money in a van. When they get to the van, the kidnapper threatens to kill the couple if they did do as they were told. They are forced inside the van, where the kidnappers ask them to hand over the money, but Nick handcuffs himself to the briefcase. After a fight, Audrey ends up shooting one of the three kidnappers while killing the driver of the van with an axe, while Nick fights the third kidnapper, and Audrey tries to navigate the van with a dead man in the driver's seat. The couple ends up crashing inside a restaurant. There, the couple learns that the cheese knife from their room was Louis's murder, and that they had fled with the money, which made them the prime suspects in the investigation. Miller finds the couple in the restaurant and takes away the ransom money. He tells the Spitzes that the news report was fake and asks to meet him at 7 p.m. the following day. Audrey starts to doubt Miller and wonders if he was the kidnapper because he took away so much money with him. Just then, the car Miller is driving bursts into flames, killing Miller in the process. A biker takes away the suitcase full of cash. However, before he can do anything more, the biker is met with an accident and a truck driver takes the suitcase with him. Audrey notes down the number of the truck and they leave to go to the opera where they could possibly meet Inspector Delacroix, who they last met 4 years ago. At the opera, Delacroix helps the couple trace the location of the truck. They borrow his car and phone as well and call Colonel asking him to stall the kidnappers until they trace the person who has the money. The couple ends up reaching the location and is shocked to see Countess Sekou and Imani there. The two women tie the couple up and Sekou kills Imani before fleeing with the money. Sekou burns down the house before she leaves, but Imani ends up shooting her before dying of the gunshot. Now, Nick and Audrey are worried about being blamed for 2 more murders as they try to escape the location while being tied up. Nick and Audrey are able to free themselves, but can't find a way out as the fire is spreading. Nick tries to shoot his way out, but misses every shot. However, he is shocked when Audrey's coat catches fire and he grabs her and jumps into the window. The two end up escaping with the suitcase and find a Lamborghini, and by chance, Audrey ends up behind the wheel of the luxury car again. They call all the suspects for a meeting at a restaurant in the Eiffel Tower and start exposing their intent behind the kidnapping. Audrey claims that Francisco could get away with the paternity lawsuits of his 2,000 children with the money, while Syra could be the sole heiress of the company that Maharaja owned. Nick claims that Claudette was trying to get the money because she would not get any if she married Maharaja given the prenup she had signed. He also points out that the colonel probably did this because he hated the way the rich people treated him so as to get a bionic arm. Just then, Maharaja walks into the restaurant, but he has been tied to a bomb. He asks Nick to place the money in the elevator, which will prompt the kidnappers to send down a detonator to stop the bomb from going off. With only less than a minute remaining, Nick decides to stall because he is sure the bomb is fake. When the timer counts down to 0, everyone is shocked to see how the bomb does not go off. Miller enters the restaurant from the glass windows. Miller, the mastermind of the abduction, appears. He had faked his death by hiding in a bomb-proof titanium chamber within the car moments before the explosion. He says that the plan was going to work, but it failed because of Sekou's friend. He takes the money away and turns on the timers to the bomb again before escaping. Audrey ends up grabbing onto Miller and joins his escape to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Nick rushes behind to follow Audrey and takes Delacroix's gun along with him. Instead of using the elevator, Nick ends up fighting Miller's men on the stairs to the top. Miller turns the bomb back on while Nick fights Miller's men. Francisco comes up just in time to help Nick. Meanwhile, Audrey threatens to throw away the suitcase full of cash if Miller did anything to the detonator. Once Nick makes it to the top of the Eiffel, he tries shooting at Miller with not 1 but 2 guns, but somehow fails to shoot Miller. Nick destroys the detonator, which eventually turns off the bomb. Miller pushes Audrey off the roof and snatches the briefcase from her. Meanwhile, Nick tackles Miller as Audrey hangs off the tower on a harness. Nick manages to open the suitcase just as Miller's escape ride. A helicopter arrives at the top of the Eiffel, and the money from the suitcase ends up flying out. Miller calls the pilot of the helicopter and asks him to kill the witnesses in the restaurant. Audrey somehow manages to hold on to the tower while Nick and Miller fight. She arrives at the top of the elevator with a gun just in time, but also ends up missing when she tries to shoot Miller. However, the couple manages to work together and tie Miller to the harness while Nick pushes him off the top of the Eiffel. Miller falls on the helicopter fan, causing the vehicle to crash. Once they are back at the restaurant, Audrey notices something peculiar about the henna on Saira's hand. She reveals that Saira had smeared her henna during the night of the Sangeet, when Maharaja was kidnapped. Now that Saira's true motives are exposed, she steals a gun from Colonel's bodyguards and tries to shoot Maharaja. However, Colonel comes in just in time and saves him, but ends up getting shot on his only remaining arm. Claudette helps tackle Saira, and the to-be-married couple decides to elope. Nick and Audrey cannot wait to go back home, but not before renewing their vows at the Locks of Love Bridge. Maharaja sends the couple a briefcase full of $10 million as a gift for saving his life, while the briefcase itself costs another $3 million. Nick and Audrey, upon Maharaja's request, go on a honeymoon using his private helicopter. But the pilot takes away the cash from the couple and jumps off the helicopter as the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I always love hearing from my viewers, so feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts on the video or any suggestions for future content. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.